So today we're talking about an often overlooked accessory in your EDC lineup, and that's going to be a good quality belt, an actual EDC belt, and a belt designed for everyday carry. There are many manufacturers out there that make really good belts, so there are 4 things that make a belt a good option for EDC, and we're going to talk about those, and might be things you might not have thought of before. These 4 things are: number 1, quality. Number 2, comfort. Number 3, sturdiness. Number 4 is convenience. So let's talk about quality first. Now, I bought many belts in the past, and these belts are typically going to be found at your big box stores, something like that. And all of these belts eventually over time have worn out. Leather pieces of fiber, little shards of leather falling off the belt. I've had these belts, actually the buckles pull out eventually, so it kind of sucks when you're carrying or when you have loose pants and then your belt snaps when you're tightening it down, all that. So quality is really important. You're gonna find quality on a lot of the modern day EDC belts. You're gonna pay a little bit more than your standard Wally World type belt. The belt's actually gonna hold up and it's gonna be rigid. I have a really thin belt right here. Now, I barely use this belt, but this is like a standard dress belt, except it has a little ratcheting system. And here's 2 examples of really sturdy EDC belts. This one is made by Next Belt. This one is made by We the People. The next thing we're going to talk about is sturdiness. Dress belt, its only job is to hold your pants up. That's pretty much it. The job of an EDC belt, like this Next Belt right here, it's going to be to hold your pants up, and it's going to be to hold your firearm up of your concealed carry weapon. One thing that's really important in the sturdiness aspect of an EDC belt is going to be how rigid does the belt stay? Can it keep its form? So your standard dress belt right here, it's kind of floppy. If you see right here, when you hold it up in a circle, it's not too bad, but I mean, it just flops around. When you hold the EDC belt up, it's rigid. It's not going anywhere. It's gonna maintain its form, and that's really gonna convert over to comfort, which we're gonna talk about in a little bit. So a belt that can maintain its form and not get too distorted with additional weight. It really helps in the comfort aspect. Right here I have one of the new Springfield Hellcat Pros, and I've attached it to this We the People belt, and you can see how rigid this is. That holster, everything, it stays intact. If you hold the belt like this, long ways round, it's very rigid. That's gonna keep that gun securely on your hip. Let's test out the other belts as well. This belt is the Core Essentials. This is the one I've been wearing for about 2 years now. And again, very rigid, not quite as rigid as the We the People gun belt, but still very rigid. It keeps its form. Here's the next belt. And this one actually feels a little bit more rigid than the Core Essentials belt, but still, I mean, it holds it very well, nice and tight. This one's kind of cool. It's actually like a ratcheting Walmart belt. But I put the gun on it, and look, that's why it's important to have an EDC belt that's meant for EDC, concealed carry, stuff like that. So next we're going to talk about comfort. The question is, what's going to make you wear a belt? Now, if the belt is uncomfortable, if it doesn't fit right, are you going to wear it? Probably not. There are some belts out there that are pretty uncomfortable. That might be because of the buckle, how big the buckle is. It can be the material of the belt itself. So I will say this dress belt's pretty comfortable, but it won't hold up my gun well, and that's the problem. So what happens is, when you use a regular belt that's not meant for EDC and isn't sturdy, you have to cinch it down nice and tight to be able to hold up that firearm. Now let me tell you this, I've concealed carry way before I have actually used a quality EDC belt. I used to buy the cheap belts for that, and I never realized how nice it is to have a form-fitting belt. A cheap dress belt, something like that. The problem is you have to cinch it down tight. That's going to really affect comfort, because now you have this super tight thing around your waist just to keep your gun in the proper position. A good, comfortable belt is going to be critical in helping you make the choice to carry that day. Convenience. Again, just like the previous category, if it's inconvenient, you're more than likely not going to carry it because it's inconvenient, and humans in general don't want to be inconvenienced. I totally get it, and I'm that same way. There's a lot of belts out there that are good EDC belts, good gun belts, stuff like that, but they're kind of a pain to put on in the morning. And I'm going to talk about one of those belts as well. Now, it's a great belt, and it's actually one of my favorite belts, but it does kind of lack in that convenience area. The important thing, make sure the belt that you buy is convenient, so you wear it. So I have 3 EDC belts that I'm going to talk about with you guys real quick, and those 3 are going to be the Core Essentials Track Gun Belt, the other one's going to be the Next Belt Supreme Carry Belt, and the last one's going to be the We the People Gun Belt with the Talon Buckle. Let's start with the Core Essentials. I've been using that belt for a long time, just over 2 years now. used it almost every single day, and I still use it in my rotation. If I feel like wearing that belt, I'll still wear it. So I was a little concerned with the nylon track inside the belt, if it's gonna wear out over time, or if the lever to release that belt's gonna wear out, which it hasn't. It's been holding up just fine. So it's a great belt, and it's extremely convenient because of that track system, that ratcheting belt system. You take those belts, you stick them together, you press them, and then it snaps into place. It's easy to release also. So the next belt that we're talking about is actually made by Next Belt, and it's called the Supreme Appendix. It's an EDC belt. Now, this is the belt that I've actually started using more now, and the reason being because that buckle on the belt is actually a lot thinner than your standard ratcheting style belts. So it doesn't take up as much room if you want to carry in the appendix, which I kind of carry more like a 2 o'clock kind of position, so it's kind of appendix, but you don't have to move that buckle over as far in order to carry appendix. So they've really answered that issue that people had with the ratcheting belts. And the nice thing about the Supreme EDC as well is, it's a very rigid belt, just like the core belt, and it's that ratcheting system. Makes it really easy to put on your belt, loosen it, take it off, very convenient. The last belt we're going to talk about is the We the People gun belt with that Talon buckle. This is one of my favorite belts because it's so sturdy. The problem with the belt is it's kind of a pain to put on. That's because you actually have to take that buckle off and loop it through your pant loops. Once you loop it through your pant loops, you can put that buckle back on, and then it's really easy to loosen, tighten, all that stuff. It's probably the most sturdy belt I have out of the other EDC belts, but again, it kind of is affected by the convenience factor. It's not very convenient, so I don't wear as much. If I'm going to the range and to go do some shooting, I might be willing to take a little extra time to fish that thing through my pant loops and then attach the buckle and all that. But for my everyday carry, when I just throw on a pair of pants and loop a belt through and go, it's just a little inconvenient, which is stopping me from wearing it as much. Try to pick a good belt that you've read good reviews on. I'm not trying to promote any belt in particular, but there are a lot of good belts out there. Tons of manufacturers are making great EDC options, and new stuff is coming out every day. New technology, all that stuff. So just make sure that you're doing your research and make sure that belt is a good quality material and it's made by a good company as well. So thank you all so much. Keep your pants up. I'll see you guys.